Hey, what's up, Optimal Nation? Welcome to another episode of the Optimal Health Show. In this week's podcast, I got my good friend, Dr. David Jockers, to come back on and talk about the ketogenic diet. Last time we had a podcast, we were talking about ketogenic diets and cancer. In today's podcast, we're actually going to show you how to implement the ketogenic diet, the best supplements for a ketogenic diet, and how the ketogenic diet can actually improve the quality of your life. Okay? So before we actually begin today's podcast, I got a couple of things to talk about. Number one, I want to highlight an amazing member from the Optimal Nation. Her name is Nora Ramos. She's been doing amazing things by optimizing her nutrition, her supplementation, her lifestyle, and living the life that she deserves. So I'll give you a huge round of applause, Nora Ramos. Keep up the amazing work. That was number one. Number two, if you hadn't had the opportunity already, please head over to iTunes, leave a review. The more reviews we have, the greater impact and reach we can have globally speaking. So without further ado, let's get on with today's podcast with Dr. David Jockers. So, Dr. Jockers, thank you so much for once again coming on the Optimal Show. And the reason I got you on this time is we're going to be talking about the pitfalls and the ins and outs about the ketogenic diet, because so many people have misconceptions about it. They don't really know where to begin. They don't know where to start. They don't know really anything about it. They keep on hearing this terminology put around everywhere. Oh, go on the ketogenic diet, low carb, etc. But it's so confusing out there because there's so much information to get overwhelmed. So that's why I got you on the show today. We're going to do step-by-step, simple stuff to maybe like clear the smoke, clear the fog, and give everybody the real answers to like what really is the ketogenic diet and how you can actually incorporate it right away.
Yeah, absolutely. Amir, great to be on again. And I love this topic, really setting up the right meal plans, focusing on the right types of foods for the ketogenic diet. It's huge. And, we really need a functional approach. People need to know exactly what to utilize. So I'm excited to share.
Awesome. So why don't we just begin right away and let's clear the smoke a little bit and explain to everybody, like, what is really the ketogenic diet?
Yeah. So in our society, when we look at our typical food guide pyramid, and probably most of your listeners understand that that really isn't the best nutritional approach, but it's an approach that most of us have been raised under. It has carbohydrates at the bottom. And so we've been raised really building our meals around starches, breads, and carbohydrates. I know for myself growing up, for breakfast, I always had cereal. In fact, we tried to avoid fat. So we'd use things like skim milk. We'd have some fruit in our cereal and we'd have orange juice, right? That was like a typical breakfast. And unfortunately, all those things have sugars is the main ingredient in all of those. And so my body, I was training my metabolism to be a sugar burner and a sugar craver. So what would happen is I would stimulate hormones that would basically lower my blood sugar, and I would have these hypo and hyperglycemic impacts. So meaning my blood sugar would go really high and then go really low. And it would cause energy fluctuations. It would cause inflammation. My mood would waver. I'd have, mood issues and things like that. And that's how, that's oftentimes an issue with people getting cranky, right? I mean, if you're around somebody, whether it's a child, a spouse, and they're regularly cranky, good chance that they're having blood sugar imbalances. It's a good chance it's going to happen. And then for lunch, I would have like a big sandwich with meat on it or something like that. And of course, the sandwich would have peanut butter and jelly. And so that's, again, all sugar. And then for dinner, we'd have pasta or something along those lines. So again, it was just all starches. And those starches train my body to run off of glucose. With the ketogenic diet, what we're trying to do is train the body to run off of ketones. And ketones are really a breakdown product of fatty acid metabolism. So what we're trying to do is teach our body to become a good fat burner, meaning that we're going to metabolize fat as our primary energy source. And when we do that, we break down the fatty acids into ketone bodies, or ketobutyric acid, which is the major ketone that we're going to metabolize. And our body it can thrive off ketones. Our muscles can adapt to utilize ketone bodies as a very efficient energy source. Same thing with our brain. Our brain can run very, very well off of ketones. It just takes the proper training and conditioning. It's not like we can go from being in a sugar burning mode to all of a sudden the next day being in a fat burning mode. It takes some time and some conditioning because there's a lot of enzymes that go into it. So it usually takes, if somebody is so used to being on a high carbohydrate diet, let's say, or a high protein diet, and then they switch into a high good fat ketogenic diet, it can often take anywhere from 3 days to, for some individuals, especially if they're insulin resistant, 2 to 3 weeks to fully condition their body to get into ketosis. And for some individuals, unique individuals that are very metabolically damaged, sometimes it can even take a little bit longer. But the basic concept is we're building our meals around good fats. We're focusing on good fats, and we're keeping our carbohydrate levels low and focusing on really low glycemic, fibrous carbohydrates like green leafy vegetables as our primary fuel sources when it comes to carbohydrates.
Definitely. So let's quickly do a recap. So you're talking about adding healthy fats and avoiding the starchy types of carbs. So give us an example of some like starchy carbs.
Starchy carbs are going to be any sort of grain products. So that's going to be rice. That's going to be breads. That's going to be pastas. That's going to be cereals. So all of those things are starchy, and even sprouted grains and things like that, even like, the stuff that's marketed as healthy grains, all of that's still starchy. I know where I'm at here in Georgia, there's a lot of people that make their own bread, right? And there's this idea that because they make their own bread that it's like super bread. And, I wish that was the case, but I'm certainly better than typical store-bought bread. So there's a lot more nutrients in it. It's a lot better, but it's still starchy. And so that's going to drive up blood sugar, drive up insulin and different fat storage, sugar burning hormones that we don't want. And so we want to stay away from things like that. Potatoes, even sweet potatoes, which, a lot of people on the paleo diet are, using a lot of sweet potatoes. And if we use a lot of sweet potatoes, we're not going to get into ketosis either. We're going to be driving up the blood sugar. Even a lot of fruit like bananas, and a lot of people are using bananas and high sugar fruits and stuff like that will pull our body out of ketosis. So we want to go with very low glycemic foods and building our meals around good fats like avocados, extra virgin olive oil, coconut and coconut products. So you have coconut butter, coconut oil, coconut milk, coconut flakes, coconut flour. So you've got a multitude of different coconut products. I mean, I use coconut butter all the time, coconut flakes. I mean, these are foundational pieces to this nutrition plan. Also, you can use grass-fed butter from grass-fed cows. Raw cheese from grass-fed cows is another great source. You get tons and tons of essential fats in there. Think supplements like fish oil or flaxseed oil or hemp oil, all good stuff. We can use different seeds like sprouted chia seeds and hemp seeds, all loaded with really good fats, lots of fibers. And then we want, it's not a high protein diet, and that's where a lot of people go wrong. They think, oh, we're going to use a lot of protein with this. And, certainly we need some protein, but we want to use really clean animal sources. So grass-fed beef, which has got tons of key essential fats like omega-3s and CLA, which are really powerful for our metabolism and our hormones. Things like organic poultry, pasture-raised eggs. So eggs are phenomenal. And, a lot of people think they want to stick with the egg white because they don't want the fat. But the best part of the egg is the fat. It's the yolk. That's where all the antioxidants are. That's where the choline is. That's where the key nutrients that fuel your brain and help your body adapt to ketosis, they're actually in the yolk. So we definitely want that. So those are our staple foods in this nutrition plan.
Awesome. Now, a lot of times people have issues of how to actually approach the ketogenic diet. So now they know, they're going to exclude the high glycemic foods. Would you say necessarily there's, I know it's individualized for each individual for the carb load, but is there like a standard limit of carbs, even with the, say, low glycemic fruits that you should not pass each day?
Yeah, and it depends on kind of what stage you're at, and it depends on how physically active you're going to be. the typical recommendation is we want to keep carbohydrates between 50 and we want to basically say between 50 and 80 carbohydrates a day. And it depends on your size as well. Sometimes, especially if we're going to do a ketogenic cleanse, if we want to work hard to get into ketosis to begin with, we might drop it down even lower and keep it under 20 carbohydrates. Okay. And so that doesn't count fiber. Fiber is an indigestible carbohydrate. But other than that, carbohydrates outside of fiber, we'd want to, in order to do a cleanse, like for example, if I'm taking care of somebody that has a metabolic disease like cancer or something along those lines, I'm going to have them do a ketogenic cleanse using perhaps bone broth, coconut oil, green juices, stuff like that, to where they're really not consuming anything. They're not consuming any berries, nothing that would have, any more than 3 or 4 grams of carbohydrate in a serving. And that gets them into ketosis much quicker. But, if you're an active individual and, you're just looking for good health benefits, between 50 and 80 carbohydrates. If you're a bigger person, 80, you can go up a little higher. If you're 6'3" or 6'4", you might do the upper end of that around 80 carbohydrates. If you're a 5'6", you might look at more like 50 carbohydrates.
Now, let's say that someone's eating roughly, on average, anywhere between 500 grams plus of carbs a day. Would you recommend that individual to stop right away and just start the next day on a keto diet, or maybe slowly wean off the carbs and kind of slowly go into the ketogenic diet?
There's a lot of variables. That's a great question. There's a lot of variables that go into that. So one of the variables is, are they a long distance athlete, right? So if they're a long distance athlete, we'd certainly want to wean them more into ketosis, or else they'll see dramatic dips in their performance. So that would be one variable that would make us want to wean it down. However, if they're just the average individual, if they're like me, a hardworking professional who's active, lives an active lifestyle, but really isn't performing in long distance competitions or really any sort of athletic competition, then you can certainly go right into it. However, what you're going to want to make sure you do is really make sure you're well hydrated, because you will lose water as you dip carbohydrates. And also on top of that, you want to make sure you're taking in minerals and salts. As you take out the carbohydrates, you can lose salts as well and minerals. Also, you want to make sure you've got fuel sources like coconut oil around that can give you a quick spike of energy, because when you come right off a high carbohydrate diet, your body's not used to metabolizing the fats, but something like coconut oil or coconut butter is very easy for our body to use. So unless that individual has maybe like liver cirrhosis or something like that, they should be able to go right into a low carb diet, as long as like every couple hours they're utilizing coconut oil to help stabilize blood sugar, to help boost up ketones. If that's the case, they should be fine. Everybody's a little bit different. Everybody's a little bit variable and unique. So there's certainly no one size fits all program. It's good to have a health coach to guide you through it, and take your unique variables into account as they customize a plan for you.
Yeah, I agree 100%. One of the major questions I get always with the ketogenic diet is a lot of people who start it maybe like within a week or maybe like 14 days into it, up to the 14-day mark, they get really hungry right away. Like they'll eat and eat, but they're like, Amir, I'm always hungry. Do you have experience with this?
Yeah, sometimes that happens. I kind of get both of it. Some individuals will say, I'm all of a sudden my hunger stopped, right? I'm not hungry at all, right? And then other individuals are constantly hungry. And so I tell them to really load up on vegetables, right? To do more liquids and more vegetables. So oftentimes they're really dehydrated. They think they're hungry, but they're really dehydrated. Other times, their body's just used to having a certain, like for example, their stomach and their intestines are used to stretching to a certain degree before they stop eating. And so sometimes they just need more. Overall roughage can really help. Obviously, there's other variables. Is that individual a bodybuilder, right? Are they, is their body getting very catabolic and breaking down muscle tissue? What does their other lifestyle activities look like? I mean, those things need to be taken into account. And perhaps, based on the amount of calories that they're burning in a day, we may need to look at increasing food intake in some particular cases. In other particular cases, we may just need to scatter meals out. Like, I'm a big fan of intermittent fasting, where we eat our meals between like a 6 to 8 hour eating window. However, if somebody has adrenal stress, the major adrenal fatigue, they're not going to be able to really do that effectively. Their energy is going to be really, really low without the fuel, and they're going to be burning through their adrenal hormones. So sometimes in those cases, we just need to really just prime their system with small amounts of protein and good fats. So they can do something like, like a half a can of organic coconut milk with maybe a scoop of either hypoallergenic protein powder, like a hemp protein, or if they're not allergic to whey, they can use like a grass-fed whey protein, and just have something small like that that's real low carb, but provides something like 15 to 20 grams of protein and about 20 to 30 grams or so of fat, to just every couple hours to just keep their body, just keep fuel in their system, and to keep teaching their body to be a fat burner.
Yeah, I found some two commonalities among individuals who actually get super hungry on a keto diet. And that is, one, they have a huge issue with cortisol dysregulation. Yep. Huge issue. And second, most have some type of dysbiosis going on in the gut.
Yeah, that's a great point, Amir. If that individual is not moving their bowels, if they're constipated, peristalsis, or the activity, the muscle activity of our intestines, helps move the bowels. So when we eat, even chewing itself or anything going into the stomach helps stimulate peristalsis. So oftentimes, I know this is the way it is for me, it's like I'm not really hungry, but for whatever reason, my body will give me somewhat like vague urges of wanting to eat, and it's really because it just wants to move the bowels, and it wants that stimulus that it's used to. So oftentimes, especially if somebody has chronic disease, I'm a big fan of having them do things like coffee enemas to really flush their system. Obviously, we got to fix the gut with a certain, ketogenic diet's a foundational point of actually fixing the gut. Certain supplements can be helpful. But yeah, it's so important that that individual is moving their bowels. Really flushing with a lot of water in the morning helps. They can do things like soul therapy with water and salts, using laxative teas like a smooth move tea, which has got some certain organic laxative herbs in there that can help flush the system. Using strategies like that, just moving the bowels in general is key. Constipation, it's a healthy response for our body to get hungry when we're constipated, because again, it's trying to send a signal for peristalsis, for this digestive movement to get things moving in our system.
Awesome. Going back to the enema for a second, how would you approach that?
As far as telling somebody to do it, or
in general, let's say the individual wants to go ahead and do it.
Yeah. Okay, so what they'll want to do is they'll want to get organic coffee. So, highest quality coffee they can get. Certainly organic is going to be great. Bulletproof coffee they can utilize. I mean, any of those types. Just get the best coffee you can, organic coffee. You roast, you cook it, you boil it, and then you let the water simmer down to where obviously the temperature is mild. You get a coffee bucket. So you can get coffee buckets on like Amazon.com, different websites. You can look them up. And you go ahead and you just you put the coffee in there, probably about 4 cups for average size adult. And you make sure the bucket is above in height, it's above you, and you insert the wiring or the tubing in through your butt, and and you insert it to a certain point, probably about a foot inside of your system, so it kind of goes up through that descending colon. And the coffee will start to, because it's going against pressure, going from a higher level to a lower level, start getting into your system. You want to lie on your left side, at least in the beginning when it's coming in, and you can rotate sides. It'll help flush different areas. It will allow your liver to detox better. So you can rotate sides. I guess the biggest challenge is really letting it sit in there, the coffee and the fluids sit in there for a period of time. If you can let it sit in there for at least 5 minutes, you're going to have a more powerful effect. The coffee actually stimulates glutathione production in the liver, so it helps purge out toxicity. It helps purge out things like gallstones, even bile that's just backed up in the liver and the gallbladder. So it helps purge out toxicity, infections, bad microbes, all kinds of stuff. And so again, it gets into kind of the crusty membranes of the gut. And most people, especially if you have dysbiosis and you've had periods of time where you've had irritable bowel type syndromes like constipation and things like that, you're gonna have a lot of crud caked into the walls of the intestine. And so the enema, the coffee, really helps to break down the crusty layer that's actually affecting your body's ability to absorb nutrients effectively. And that cruddy outer layer is housing all kinds of bad microbes. So you want it to get in there and really take effect and break down these outer walls, these outer crusty fibers, and pull that out of the system. And you let it sit in there for as long as you can. You're going to have urges. Certainly wouldn't say it's the most comfortable experience. I've done my fair share, and it's certainly not the most comfortable experience. But afterwards, you feel incredible, right? So it's so worth it for the experience afterwards. You're like, wow, that felt amazing. You get this great energy rush, which really has nothing to do with the caffeine. You just feel really, really good because you're cleaned out. Your body's absorbing nutrients better. You've decreased your microbial load, which is key. Part of the process of moving our bowels is actually decreasing our microorganism, our bacterial load in our system. And that takes a lot of stress off your body, lowers things like LPS and other inflammatory agents that are in our body. So that's what you want to do with the enema. And on my website, I've got an article that explains more detail, and you can certainly find more information online with it.
Cool. Actually, I'll put it in the show notes, a link to that the article. That'd be fantastic.
Yep.
Now, have you always people talk about this too, is like we mentioned a little bit earlier, is this whole idea that they think the ketogenic diet is some type of like a super high protein diet, and they talk about gluconeogenisis, where eating too much protein, your liver will convert it to glucose.
Exactly.
But however, that's not what the ketogenic diet is, right?
It's
a high fat diet, right?
Exactly. Yep. So we don't want excessive amounts of protein because, just like you said, our body has this natural biochemical process called gluconeogenesis, where neo means new, genesis means formation, and gluco, of course, is glucose. So it's producing glucose through a new and novel pathway. So typically we produce glucose through breaking down starches and sugars, but we can also produce it through breaking down amino acids, and that's that same process. So really the best bet is to get about half, so basically half your body weight in kilograms, or about, the amount of kilograms that you weigh in protein. So, if you are 70 kilograms of weight, about 70 grams of protein, if you live an active lifestyle, is appropriate. If you don't live an active lifestyle, if you're sedentary, you want even less. So if you weighed 70 kilograms, you'd want to get more like 40 to 50, about 0.8 or so, 0.7 to 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight of protein. So that's really all you need to recover, to sustain, or recover from stressful activities. Any more than that, your body's going to start to metabolize it into sugar. So that's not what you want. Now, if you're an elite athlete, you're going to need more. If you're working out at a high level, you're certainly going to need more. So there's always variables. But we want to really focus on fats, because the fats are what breaks down into ketones, and the body cannot convert these fatty acids into sugar effectively. So basically, it just turns them into ketones, and our body becomes very primed and good at metabolizing these ketones for energy source.
Now, what would you say for those individuals who say, for example, not an athlete, but like yourself, you're quite active, you spend time in the gym, and then you hear this debate about, well, you need carbs after the workout or else your body falls apart. What's your take on that?
That used to be the thought. And, that came again from this whole model of looking at carbohydrates as our primary energy source. But what we know today is really the most important thing for recovery is reducing muscle inflammation. So it's the muscle inflammation theory has now risen to predominance. And so from a progressive circle, when people like you and me, Amir, we understand, hey, it's all about controlling inflammation. So it's not about these macromolecules like carbohydrates and stuff like that. It's really about just reducing inflammatory aspects. And so when we bring in the sugar, we're lowering our body's ability to produce this major hormone called human growth hormone. And human growth hormone is such a powerful hormone for regulating immunity, cleaning up inflammation, boosting anti-aging characteristics in our bodies. So we get great benefits from that. When we take in sugar, we raise a hormone called insulin, which is inflammatory. It promotes inflammation in our body. It lowers human growth hormone. It's an antagonist to human growth hormone. And that's not what we want. And so you're going to recover a lot better with, again, just the same kind of nutrition plan we're talking about. In fact, for myself, Amir, what I do personally, and again, I'm not an extreme athlete, but I work out 6 days a week and very high intensity. My workouts are usually about 15 to 20 minutes, very high intensity. Like when I lift weights, I lift very, very heavy. And that enables me to boost my testosterone and enables me to maintain a good amount of muscle mass. And I vary different workouts. I mean, certainly do body weight workouts as well. But when I'm lifting heavy, I lift heavy, very heavy. And I actually fast. So I work out in the morning on an empty stomach, well hydrated, and I make sure I've got a lot of antioxidants. I use lemon water or something along those lines, just to give my body a little bit of a buffer. And then I go ahead, I work out really, really intensely. And then after that, I drink water. I'll take certain stress hormone balancing supplements like ashwagandha and rhodiola to just keep my stress hormones really at bay. But I don't eat until lunch. And so I'll work out. Like this morning, I worked out around 7:30, and I ate my first meal around 1 o'clock. And I really wasn't even hungry when I ate. And what I've noticed is actually doing that, I recover better. I've tried a lot of different things. I've tried having a protein shake after I work out, and my recovery is not as good. For whatever reason, I recover significantly better when I'm doing the fasting lifestyle. The next morning I wake up, I feel great. I've got a lot of energy, my strength levels. I'm at, my peak as far as strength output in squats and bench press and different areas like that. And it's through this fasting window, which honestly, I have a master's degree in exercise science, and my professors, they were vigilant about this window, this 30-minute window after you work out where you had to fuel yourself. They were so vigilant about that. And, I've really defied that. My body recovers significantly better without it. Now, if you are an extreme athlete, you may respond better by having a protein shake, right? With good coconut fats, medium chain triglycerides, healthy protein, maybe some berries, right? Low glycemic berries that provide antioxidants. You may function better there, right? It's certainly not a one size fits all program, but you still want to stick with the ketogenic principles. And the great thing about it is your body becomes very efficient. Okay, I'm able to work out at a very high intensity for a short period of time, but I'm able to get everything out of my body, and I really am on a low carb diet because my body is so good at taking whatever carbohydrates do come in and putting them right into the muscle and elevating my stored glycogen levels. It's kind of a signal. It's like a survival signal, primal signal the body has, where it's like, you know what? Carbohydrates are scarce, and we're in a stressful environment. For whatever reason, this guy's lifting very heavy amounts of weight. He's running sprints. He's doing extreme exercise every day, and yet we're not getting the carbohydrates we need. So we need to be very efficient at storing the carbohydrates in the muscle tissue, in the liver, so that way I'll be ready for those opportunities. My body doesn't know the difference between, me doing a bench press or a pull-up or me climbing a tree because I'm trying to save my life, right? It doesn't really know the difference. All it knows is I'm in a stressful environment and it needs to get better at adapting. So it gets really good at, it's my thrifty genes or something called thrifty genes they get activated. And those thrifty genes just get really, really good at storing the carbohydrate where it needs to be in the muscles, in the liver. So it's ready for the next performance. It's ready for the next exercise bout. And then, of course, because we need all the carbohydrate there, we want to keep our blood sugar low and stable, and we want to really be good at burning fat because we don't need fat to save our lives when it comes to climbing a tree or running away from a predator. We need fat for our major energy source when we're at rest. And so, 15 minutes a day, I'm burning up carbs, but the other 23 hours and 45 minutes for that day, I'm burning fat. And, that's really the sweet spot. That's where we want to be.
Yeah. Not too long ago, I think I was reading one of Ori Hofmeckler's books.
Great author. Yep.
Yeah. I forget which one, like Maximum Muscle, I think it was. And he was talking about the fact that up to like 3 hours or plus, like if you wait until, like if you eat right away, you're going to actually diminish the maximum potential you have for muscle growth because ghrelin will actually stimulate growth hormone after your workout.
Yep, absolutely. We want to get the massive spike of growth hormone. So carbohydrate is the enemy, and a lot of fat can be actually the enemy of growth hormone right after a workout. So we want a high-fat diet. However, right after the workout, we actually, if you're going to have a fuel source, you want to make sure the fat you're using is medium chain fat. That's very easy on your system. Metabolize it quick. So coconut oil is going to be our best source for that. And a fast-absorbing protein. Ideally, if you're not allergenic to it, a grass-fed whey protein works best for that. So either fasting or having a protein shake like that. And another thing that Ori talks about in his book is priming with whey protein. So he'll say, wait. So you can wait a little bit, right, and then you can have these small protein shakes every 2 to 3 hours to just give you elevated boosts of growth hormone and enhance recovery. And it's very anabolic. So if an individual wants to gain muscle mass, very powerful muscle mass gaining effects of doing that. Small protein shakes with good fats and protein.
Right on. Now, would you recommend any, say, supplements to kind of slowly get into the ketogenic diet? Because it's one thing to start the diet, it's a second thing for your cells to actually take up the ketones. So is there any certain supplements that maybe some individuals may have metabolic issues that they could benefit from?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously if their gut is damaged, like we talked about, probiotics, getting in probiotics, getting support for the gut is going to be helpful. Obviously if they have a really damaged gut, leaky gut syndrome, then we could talk about a bunch of different supplements. We could talk about glutamine and different things like that, colostrum. However, just an average individual, certainly probiotics are going to be important. Another critical one would be a good whole food or a good quality multivitamin or a blood sugar balancing type of supplement that's got things like chromium and zinc in there. That can be real helpful. A lot of times people that are on these high carbohydrate diets are very deficient in things like chromium, and they've got damage to their insulin receptors. And so the faster we can get the insulin sensitivity, faster we can improve the receptor sites, the easier it's going to be to get into a state of ketosis. So that'll be real helpful. Also, stress hormone balancing supplements. Like I was telling you, I take a supplement that has green coffee bean extract, which is very good. It's got chlorogenic acid, caffeic acid, very, very good for improving insulin sensitivity. So this supplement I take has got green coffee bean extract, rhodiola, which is a stress hormone adaptogen. It's adaptogen. So it helps keep stress hormones balanced and regulated, helps the body burn fat better for fuel, and ashwagandha, which keeps cortisol stabilized as well, stress hormone stabilized. So it's got all three of those, and it actually has a probiotic in it as well. So it's kind of a combo supplement. And that's really one of my foundational supplements I use personally. So that's very, very helpful. So doing something, especially if somebody has adrenal stress, which most of us do have some level of adrenal stress. So something to help really balance the adrenals helps that individual get into ketosis. I would say, toughest individuals to get into ketosis are people that have, full-on adrenal fatigue, and also individuals that have very fast-growing cancers, because the fast-growing cancers will oftentimes release certain factors and certain toxins into the body that elevate blood sugar, which makes it really tough. And also a lot of times these people are on different medications like corticosteroids, for example. Oftentimes those are prescribed for people that have things like rheumatoid arthritis, and different cancers to reduce inflammation. And those corticosteroids just continually elevate blood sugar. So I'm always trying to influence that individual to get off of those corticosteroids and use natural anti-inflammatories like high doses of turmeric and ginger and things like systemic enzymes to reduce inflammation instead in a natural way that's not going to affect blood sugar.
Actually, what's your take on Woban enzyme?
I love it. Yeah, I use Woban enzyme in my practice for a lot of people. In fact, it's great for athletes. I sprained my ankle a couple months ago and it was all black and blue and literally was taking about 150 capsules of Woban enzyme a day. And, in 5 days, I was back doing squats, working out on my legs, and I was probably a 2.5 week injury, reduced the time because of its ability to really powerfully increase the healing process, improve the speed of the healing process, reduce inflammation. Also very good. It's an immune modulator. So it helps really break down inflammatory proteins like C-reactive protein, things like that. It helps break down scar tissue, which is critical because cancer cells have a real fibrotic plaque that builds up around them to protect them from our body's immune system. And so it works great if that individual wants to do chemotherapy. It works great for enhancing the benefits of chemotherapy, the more pinpointed ability of the chemotherapy. And if they don't want to do chemotherapy, it's even more essential because it's critical for the body's innate ability to break down the cancer because of its ability to break down that fibrotic plaque. And people that have had strokes helps break down the plaquey deposits. So I use it for a lot of different individuals. Great supplement. It is a foundational supplement. So if somebody just wants to improve their health, they can take it. If they're trying to reverse a chronic disease, very, very powerful stuff.
Awesome. Yeah. I've been doing some research lately on it, and it's powerful stuff. And I just want to tell the audience out there that we're talking about a systemic enzymes over here.
Yes.
So there's a big difference between exactly. So there's a big difference. Now, if someone then wants to start right now, say today after listening to our podcast, they want to jump into a ketogenic diet, what's the first tip that you should tell this individual? Like, okay, start this. This is like that pinnacle epic thing that you must do.
Yeah, I would say, first step would be set up a meal plan, right? That's going to be key. So if you're just trying to wing it, you're going to have a lot more problems. If you're just waiting till you get hungry in a sense and then just making a split decision, you're going to have problems. So there's always a learning curve. So the more that you can kind of meal plan to begin with, the better off you're going to be. So load up on your coconut products. Make sure you've got coconut flakes, coconut oil, coconut butter, coconut milk at your house, coconut flour if you want to do any baking or anything like that. You'll definitely want to make sure you got a lot of avocados around, that you've got grass-fed butter, that you've got grass-fed animal products. So make sure that your refrigerator, you got all the vegetables. Make sure your refrigerator and your pantry is well stocked. If you're working or you're eating out, you got to have a plan around that. So, if you're somebody who travels or eats out regularly, you need to do some research. So you just need to educate yourself on what restaurant you can go to find clean organic food that you can build your plan around. You can get an organic piece of meat. You can get good quality organic vegetables. You can use things like olive oil. Maybe they'll have avocado that you can put on. So you got to do your research. You got to customize what your lifestyle demands are around the nutrition plan. And so we just got to get educated, do the research, and just like learning anything else, there's a learning curve. So you have to expect that. One of the biggest mistakes I see people make, Amir, is for whatever reason, and I guess it's just the way that they've been trained by going to see their medical doctor. They think they just walk out with a prescription, or a plan, right, and all the work's done. But the greatest thing they can do is really just immerse themselves in the information they need, listening to podcasts like this, going to websites like yours and mine, and getting paleo cookbooks and things like that. So they actually have all of the different resources around them. And honestly, somebody can immerse themselves in this for a month and really, really understand the strategies that are going to work for them. And obviously, I encourage a lifelong learning process. but the average individual can walk away with a lot of great strategies with really just, a couple weeks of just immersing themselves, experimenting, and, doing the necessary research to figure out what's going to work well for them.
Awesome. So let's leave it at this. If you had to summarize, or if you had to give one optimal tip, anything to do with health for one individual, you had 5 seconds with them, what would it be?
For optimal health?
Yeah.
Again, I would say number one is your mindset. And we talked about this at the last workshop, but I can sit there and talk somebody blue in the face. I'm inspired to live this lifestyle. I'm convicted in it. I've seen incredible life transforming results, but that individual hasn't. This might be their first exposure to it, right? And the reality is they need to do whatever it takes. And anytime we create a lifestyle change, there's resistance. There's always going to be resistance that steps up. And so they need to expect that. They need to expect that it shouldn't necessarily be easy. And they need to create a mindset that allows them to overcome the resistance. So whatever it takes to inspire them. I'm a huge fan of not leaving your house in the morning unless you are inspired. Like, you shouldn't walk into your car unless you feel like you're ready to save the world. Now, whatever it takes, watching YouTube videos, listening to inspiring people, listening to music, dancing around your house, whatever it takes, find out what you need to be inspired on a regular basis and practice that daily. Because that inspiration, that high level of motivation will drive you past the resistance and keep you focused and on target. It'll allow you to learn more and allow you to learn this information quicker at an accelerated rate and really make it more fun and enjoyable as you follow this process. So it all starts with the mindset. Figure out what it takes to be inspired. Go out and learn exactly what you need to learn. And you know what? You'll be coming back to Amir and myself, and you'll say, you know what? It really wasn't that hard. It's actually a lot of fun. It's enjoyable. And you'll actually be making an influence on all the people around you as well. And you know what? Great thing about it is this. We have no idea how far reaching something small we may think, say, or do today will impact and influence all the people around us in the future. Mm-hmm. I've seen numerous cases in my office where people who didn't think they could be successful but found the inspiration inside, were able to overcome the challenges, change their life, then became an incredible inspiration for other people. And now they've been able to help other people in their lives. And now they've been able to help people that they'll never meet because other people have heard their story. And so by being disciplined, by being inspired on a regular basis, it's like a butterfly flapping its wings. It can have incredible impact all around the world. People you've never known, you've never met, your story can impact them. So your inspiration now, not only does that transform your life and give you greater quality of life, but you never know how far-reaching it can be.
Powerful, powerful words. I agree 100%. Dr. David Jockers, thank you so much, my friend, for coming on the show again. Where can people find you and reach you at?
Amir, it's been such a pleasure, such an honor. Always enjoy conversing with you. I think you have one of the best podcasts out there. So I'd recommend anybody that's listening to this to absolutely make sure they subscribe. Amir brings on amazing speakers. I always like to listen to all of his podcasts. He's got amazing guests, amazing information. The guy is extremely knowledgeable. So make sure you get set up with him. And if you want to follow my information, you can find me at drjockers.com. That's drjockers.com. You can sign up for my newsletter. You get a free ebook, Supercharge Your Life, and a free recipe guide that utilizes the same principles that I'm teaching today. And also you can find my book on my website as well, Supercharge Your Brain, all the best tips and strategies to radically improve your mood, your memory, and your mindset. We didn't really talk about how ketogenic diet affects your brain, but it is powerful. You'll notice that you have better mental function, better cognitive acceleration. You'll have more emotional balance. You'll be able to grow stronger spiritually. It'll be easier for you to be inspired when you follow these principles, and your life will be transformed. So
awesome.
So with that being said, again, pleasure and honor.
Likewise, my friend. Have a great day.
All right, you too. Bye-bye.